Marcus Williams' hands were buried deep inside a woman's chest cavity when the hospital administrator walked in. Blood pooled on the trauma bay floor. 43 bullet wounds. No surgeon. No permission. Just a black single father, an ER nurse, who refused to let a decorated female Navy SEAL die on his watch. 3 hours later, he pulled the last bullet from her shattered body and heard her breathe steady for the first time. The military officer in the corner nodded once in silent respect, but the administrator's face told a different story. 24 hours later, Marcus would lose everything he'd worked for. And then, helicopters would arrive. What happened next, nobody saw coming. Before we continue, drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from, so we can see how far this story has traveled. And if you believe in people who stand up for what's right, hit that subscribe button. Now, let's go back to where it all started. The call came through at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that had been too quiet for Marcus Williams' liking. Code red incoming, unidentified female, critical GSW trauma, multiple penetrating wounds, ETA 3 minutes. Marcus was already moving before the dispatcher finished. 12 years as an Army combat medic before nursing school had taught him one thing. When the call comes, you don't think, you act. Prep Trauma Bay 2, he called out, his voice cutting through the usual emergency room hum. I need O-negative ready, full surgical kit, and someone page Dr. Harrison, now. The charge nurse, Patricia, a white woman in her 50s who'd worked nights at County General for 30 years, looked up from her station. Dr. Harrison's across town at that pile-up on the interstate. They're saying at least another hour. Marcus stopped mid-stride. Then page whoever's on backup. Already tried. Dr. Mehta's in surgery. Dr. Rodriguez is dealing with a cardiac case in ICU. The automatic doors burst open before Marcus could respond. But what came through wasn't an ambulance crew. It was 2 men in tactical gear, carrying a woman between them, her body limp, her uniform soaked black with blood. We need help, now, the taller one barked. Military, special operations by the look of the patches, though most insignia had been stripped away. She's got minutes, not hours. Marcus rushed forward, his training overriding every other thought. He was a father first, but right now, he was a medic. Get her on the gurney. What happened? Classified, the shorter operative said, but his eyes held real fear. Ambush. She took the worst of it getting our team out. 40+ rounds. She's our captain. She dies, we answer to Washington and her 10-year-old son who just lost his father last year. Marcus felt his stomach clench. A mother. A son. He thought of Maya, asleep at their neighbor Mrs. Chen's apartment, waiting for Daddy to come home from the night shift. They lifted the woman onto the table. Marcus cut away the tactical vest, the uniform jacket. Underneath, her body was destroyed. Entry wounds across her chest, abdomen, shoulders. Some bullets had gone clean through. Others were buried deep. Jesus, Patricia whispered beside him. The woman's eyes fluttered open for just a second. Dark eyes, maybe 35, the same age as Marcus. She tried to speak, but only blood came. Stay with me, Marcus said, his hand on her shoulder. I've got you. Her vitals were crashing. The monitor screamed. BP's dropping, 70/40, the tech called out. We need a surgeon, Patricia said, her voice tight. Marcus, we need to wait. She doesn't have time to wait. You're not authorized. You're an RN, not... I was a combat medic for 12 years. I've done this before. Not here, not without a doctor present. Marcus, think about what? About liability? About protocol? His voice rose, something it rarely did. Or about the fact that a mother is dying right in front of us? The 2 military operatives stepped closer. The taller one, his name tape read Martinez, spoke quietly. "Do what you have to do. We'll handle whatever comes after." Marcus looked at the woman on the table. Her breathing was shallow, rattling. He'd heard that sound in Fallujah, in Kandahar. It was the sound of someone slipping away. He thought of Maya, 8 years old, gap-toothed smile, always asking why Daddy had to work nights. He thought of the bills piling up on their kitchen table, the rent due in 6 days, his late wife Sarah's medical debt that still haunted him 2 years after her death from cancer. If he did this, he could lose everything. If he didn't, this woman would die. "Get me a scalpel," he said, "and everyone in this room better be ready to move fast." Patricia stared at him for 3 long seconds. Then she nodded once and snapped into action. "You heard him. Let's move." The next 3 hours became a blur of blood, precision, and prayer. Marcus worked with the focused intensity he'd learned in field hospitals under mortar fire. The first bullet was lodged in her shoulder, had nicked the subclavian artery. He clamped it, irrigated, extracted. The metal clinked into the tray. "One down," he muttered. 42 to go. "Marcus, her pressure's dropping again," the respiratory tech called. "Give me 1 unit O-neg, and keep that suction coming." He moved to the chest wound. 2 bullets had entered near the sternum. 1 had fragmented. He could see the pieces glinting under the surgical light. His hands, steady despite everything, worked with the delicate touch Sarah used to tease him about. "You have surgeon's hands," she'd said once, back when she was healthy, before the cancer. "Gentle, but strong." "Pressure stabilizing," Patricia called. "You're doing it, Marcus." But he couldn't think about success yet. 12 more bullets in the abdomen, 7 in the legs. The grazing wounds across her arms and neck would need attention, but they weren't immediately fatal. "Talk to me about the abdominal wounds," he said to Patricia, who was monitoring the portable ultrasound. "I see at least 3 near major vessels. One looks like it's sitting right on the hepatic artery." Marcus took a breath. That was the nightmare scenario. One wrong move, and she'd bleed out in seconds. "Okay, I'm going in. If I call for clamps, I need them in my hand before I finish the word." "We're ready." He made the incision. The woman's body jerked slightly, though she was unconscious. His fingers found the first bullet, lodged between 2 loops of intestine. Carefully, he worked it free. The tissue was damaged, but not catastrophically. He packed it, moved on. The second bullet was the problem. It was pressed against the hepatic artery, and the surrounding tissue was inflamed, angry. If he pulled wrong, she'd die. "Marcus," Patricia said quietly, "you sure about this?" "No," he admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." He isolated the vessel, slipped a clamp beneath it for protection, then used the finest forceps to work the bullet free, 1 millimeter at a time. The sweat on his forehead dripped despite the cool air. "Come on," he whispered. "Come on." The bullet shifted. His breath stopped. The artery held. He extracted it in one smooth motion and let out the breath he'd been holding. "Got it." "You beautiful, crazy man," Patricia breathed. 2 hours in, 38 bullets removed. The woman's vital signs were stronger. She was fighting. Marcus's back screamed. His hands ached, but he kept going. Bullet 39 from the left thigh. 40 from the right shoulder. 41 from just below the rib cage. The military operatives watched from the corner, silent as statues. Martinez's jaw was clenched so tight it looked like it might shatter. 42, Marcus said, dropping another slug into the tray. "One more." The last bullet was the deepest, buried in her back near the spine. He'd saved it for last because it was the scariest. But she was stable now. Stable enough. "Help me turn her. Gentle." They rolled her carefully. Marcus made a small incision, probed carefully. The bullet had missed the spinal cord by perhaps 2 millimeters. If it had shifted when she was moved, she could have been paralyzed. "You're one lucky woman," he told his unconscious patient. "Whoever you are." He extracted the final bullet. 43 pieces of metal now filled the tray beside him, each one a story, each one a near death. "That's all of them," he said quietly. "Let's close her up." As Patricia sutured under his guidance, Marcus stepped back and stripped off his gloves. His scrubs were soaked in blood. His arms trembled with exhaustion. But the woman on the table was breathing, steady, strong breaths. Martinez approached, his eyes red. "You just saved Captain Sarah Chen's life," he said, his voice thick. "She's got a son named Tommy. He's 10. His dad died in Syria 8 months ago. You just made sure he doesn't lose his mother, too." Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in his throat. A son, 10 years old, just 2 years older than Maya. "Thank you," the other operative said. "We won't forget this." But as Marcus looked up, he saw her, Dr. Vivian Hartwell, the hospital administrator, standing in the doorway. Her face was stone, her arms were crossed, and in her eyes, Marcus saw everything that was coming. "Mr. Williams," she said coldly, "my office, now. I need to finish now." Patricia grabbed his arm gently. "I'll monitor her. Go." Marcus walked out of the trauma bay, his boots leaving bloody footprints on the white tile. The hallway felt longer than it ever had. Other nurses stared as he passed. Some looked away. One, young Amy, who he'd trained last year, had tears in her eyes. Dr. Hartwell's office was all glass and chrome, sterile as an operating room, but infinitely colder. She sat behind her desk and didn't invite him to sit. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" she asked. "I saved a woman's life." "You performed surgery without authorization, without a physician present, without consent forms, without time," Marcus cut in. "She was dying. The on-call surgeon was an hour away. Every backup was occupied. What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to wait. You were supposed to follow protocol. You were supposed to remember that you're a nurse, not a surgeon, and that this hospital can be sued into oblivion for what just happened." "So you'd rather she died?" "I'd rather you'd followed the rules that protect this institution and everyone in it." Marcus felt something break inside him. Something that had been holding together since Sarah died, since he'd become the only parent Maya had, since he'd learned to navigate a world that already had too many assumptions about a black, single father. "Rules," he said quietly. "A mother is alive because I broke your rules. And this hospital could lose its accreditation because you played cowboy. We're not a military field hospital, Mr. Williams. We're a civilian facility with civilian liability." She opened a folder on her desk. Marcus recognized his employee file. "Effective immediately, you are suspended without pay pending a full review. You will surrender your badge, your key card, and any hospital property. Security will escort you out." The room spun slightly. "You're firing me?" "I'm protecting this hospital. What you did was reckless, dangerous, and illegal. The board will make a final determination, but I'm recommending immediate termination." "I have a daughter," Marcus said, and hated how his voice cracked. "I'm all she has. I need this job." "You should have thought of that before you ignored every protocol we have." 2 security guards appeared at the door. Marcus recognized them both. Phil, who always asked about Maya, and Tony, who'd been there the night Sarah died, who'd sat with Marcus in the chapel and said nothing, because nothing needed to be said. Now they both looked at the floor. "Gentlemen, please escort Mr. Williams from the premises." Marcus unclipped his badge from his scrubs. The photo showed him smiling, taken 3 years ago when Sarah was still alive, when the world made sense. He set it on Dr. Hartwell's desk like a surrender. "For what it's worth," he said, "I'd do it again." "I know you would," she replied. "That's exactly the problem." The walk through the hospital was the longest of his life. Past the ER where he'd worked for 6 years. Past the break room where he'd eaten terrible vending machine sandwiches at 3 a.m. Past the trauma bay where Captain Sarah Chen was alive, breathing, going to see her son again because Marcus Williams had refused to let her die. They reached the staff entrance. The night air hit him like a slap. Phil and Tony stood awkwardly nearby. "Marcus, man," Tony started. "I'm sorry, this is—" "Don't," Marcus said quietly. "You got families too. I understand." He walked to his 2008 Honda Civic, the one with the dent in the passenger door and Maya's booster seat in the back. He sat behind the wheel, but didn't start the engine. His hands were still shaking. Blood had dried under his fingernails. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen, his elderly neighbor who watched Maya on night shifts. "She's sleeping sound. Don't rush. Take your time." Marcus stared at those words. Take your time. As if he had time. As if time wasn't already running out. Rent was due in 6 days. $1,350 he didn't have without this paycheck. Maya's asthma inhaler needed refilling. Another $75. The electric bill. The car payment. Sarah's remaining medical debt that he was still chipping away at. $200 a month. He'd saved a life and lost everything. Marcus put his head against the steering wheel and finally let himself break. The sobs came hard and silent, his shoulders shaking. He cried for Sarah. Gone 2 years, but somehow the loss still fresh every single day. He cried for Maya, who deserved better than a father who couldn't keep a job. He cried for the woman on that table, alive because he'd refused to be the man who did nothing. And somewhere in the grief, buried under the fear and exhaustion, was something else. Something he couldn't name yet. Something that felt almost like pride. He'd done the right thing. The world could take his job, his paycheck, his security, but it couldn't take that. Marcus wiped his eyes, started the car, and drove home through empty streets to the daughter who still believed her daddy could fix anything. He had no idea that in 24 hours, 3 helicopters would descend on his neighborhood. He had no idea that the woman whose life he saved would refuse to let his sacrifice go unanswered. He had no idea that sometimes, when you lose everything for doing what's right, the universe is just making room for something better. But right now, at 2:17 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, Marcus Williams just knew one thing. He was a father with no job, no prospects, and no idea how he was going to explain to his 8-year-old daughter that her hero had just become unemployed for being exactly what he'd always taught her to be. Brave. The apartment was dark when Marcus turned the key at 2:43 a.m. He moved quietly, muscle memory guiding him through the small living room to Maya's bedroom door. He pushed it open just enough to see her curled up under her favorite blanket, the purple one with stars that Sarah had bought her 6th birthday, 2 months before the cancer diagnosis. Mrs. Chen appeared in the hallway, pulling her cardigan tight. "She went down easy tonight," the elderly woman whispered. "Asked about you around 9, but I told her you were saving lives." Marcus felt the words hit him like a physical blow. Saving lives. Yeah, he'd done that, and it had cost him everything. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. What do I owe you?" "Nothing tonight, honey. You look like you've been through hell. Go get some rest." She patted his arm and shuffled toward the door. Marcus wanted to tell her, wanted to say that there wouldn't be many more nights like this, because he couldn't afford to pay her anymore. But the words stuck in his throat. The door clicked shut. The silence pressed in. Marcus walked to the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water he didn't want. His hands were finally steady, but the blood under his nails remained. Dark half-moons that wouldn't wash away no matter how hard he scrubbed. He sat at the small kitchen table, the same table where he'd sat with Sarah during her last weeks, holding her hand while she tried to eat soup she couldn't keep down. The same table where he'd signed the papers that put them $47,000 in medical debt. The same table where he'd explained to a 6-year-old Maya that Mommy wasn't coming home from the hospital. His phone sat silent on the table. No calls, no texts, nothing from anyone at County General. 6 years he'd worked there. 6 years of double shifts and holidays and covering for other people's emergencies. And now, nothing. Marcus picked up the phone and scrolled through his contacts. Patricia. They'd worked together for 4 years. She had to understand. He typed out a message. "Hey, I know tonight was crazy. Just wanted to say thanks for having my back in there." He stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it. What was the point? She had her own job to protect, her own family to feed. Sleep didn't come. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, running the numbers in his head. $1,350 for rent, due Monday. $380 in the checking account. Maya's inhaler, $75. Electric bill, $120. Car payment, $285. Groceries, gas, the medical debt payment. By dawn, he'd worked out that he had maybe 2 weeks before everything fell apart. Maya's door opened at 6:15, right on schedule. She padded out in her unicorn pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, you're home early?" Marcus sat up, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack his face in half. "Hey, baby girl. Yeah, I got off a little early. Can we make pancakes?" "Sure can." They moved through the morning routine. Marcus mixed the batter, while Maya set the table, chattering about a boy named Devin who'd tried to kiss her friend Emma at recess, and how gross boys were. Except for Daddy, of course. Marcus flipped pancakes and made the appropriate shocked noises and tried not to think about how he was going to tell her. "Daddy, you're quiet," Maya said, drowning her pancakes in syrup. "Did something bad happen at work?" Marcus set down his fork. "Yeah, baby. Something did happen." She looked up at him with Sarah's eyes, dark and intelligent and missing nothing. "What happened?" "I had to help someone last night. A woman who was very sick. And I helped her, and she's going to be okay." "That's good, right?" "Yeah, that's real good. But the people at the hospital, they didn't like how I helped her, so they said I can't work there anymore." Maya's face scrunched up in confusion. "But you're a nurse. You're supposed to help people." "I know, sweetie. So why are they mad? Because sometimes grown-ups have rules that don't make a lot of sense. And I broke some of those rules to help that woman. But she's alive because of you?" "Yeah. Then you did the right thing." She said it with such certainty, such absolute faith in her father, that Marcus had to look away. "I hope so, baby. What are you going to do now?" "I'm going to find another job, and everything's going to be okay." Maya nodded, accepting this the way kids do, with trust that felt heavier than any burden Marcus had ever carried. "Okay, Daddy. Can I have more pancakes?" After he dropped Maya at school, Marcus sat in the parking lot and made the calls he'd been dreading. St. Mary's Hospital, 2 miles away. Mercy General, across town. The VA hospital, where he'd applied twice before and been passed over both times. "I'm sorry, Mr. Williams, but we're not hiring right now." "We'll keep your resume on file. Given the circumstances at your previous employment, we'll need to complete a full review process." That last one came from the HR director at St. Mary's, a woman named Janet, whose voice dripped with the kind of professional courtesy that meant absolutely not. "What circumstances?" Marcus asked, even though he knew. "We were informed this morning by County General's legal department that you're under review for performing unauthorized surgical procedures. Until that's resolved, we can't consider your application." Marcus's grip on the phone tightened. "I saved a woman's life. I understand that's your perspective, Mr. Williams, but we have to consider our institution's liability. I'm sure you understand." She hung up before he could respond. Marcus sat in the car, watching kids run across the playground, their laughter distant and hollow. They'd blacklisted him. County General had made sure every hospital in the city knew. Unauthorized procedures. Liability risk. It didn't matter that he'd done the right thing. It only mattered that he'd made them look bad. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Marcus Williams?" "Yeah?" "This is Tom Berger with Channel 7 News. We're running a story on the incident at County General last night. We'd love to get your side of things." Marcus's stomach dropped. "How did you hear about that?" "We have sources at the hospital. Look, from what we're hearing, you performed emergency surgery on a military operative without authorization. That's a hell of a story. Hero nurse saves Navy SEAL, gets fired for it. People need to hear this." "I can't talk to you." "Mr. Williams, if you don't tell your side, the hospital controls the narrative. Is that what you want?" "I want to be left alone." He hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. He declined the call. Then another, and another. By noon, there were 3 news vans parked outside his apartment building. Marcus saw them from 2 blocks away and kept driving. He couldn't go home. Couldn't face the cameras, the questions, the transformation of his life into a story for the evening news. He ended up at Sarah's grave. He hadn't been there in 2 months, maybe more. The small headstone was simple. Sarah Elizabeth Williams, beloved wife and mother, 1988 to 2023. Marcus sat in the grass beside it. "I screwed up," he said quietly. "I know you'd tell me I did the right thing. You always saw the best in me, even when I couldn't see it myself. But I don't know how I'm going to take care of Maya now. I don't know how to fix this." The cemetery was quiet, except for wind through the trees. No answers came. They never did. "She's so much like you," he continued. "Smart, strong, doesn't take any crap from anybody. She told me this morning I did the right thing. Said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Like being brave doesn't cost anything." His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. "This is Patricia. I'm sorry I couldn't say anything at the hospital. They're watching everyone who was in that room. But you need to know, everyone on staff is talking about what you did. Most of us think you're a hero. The administration is just scared. Give it time." Marcus stared at the message. Give it time. As if time was something he had. Another text, this one from Tony, the security guard. "Man, I felt like garbage escorting you out. You saved that woman's life. Don't let them make you forget that." Then another from Amy, the young nurse. "You taught me that being a nurse means putting patients first, always. You lived that last night. I won't forget it." The messages kept coming. One by one, his colleagues finding the courage to reach out privately, unable to stand with him publicly, but unwilling to let his sacrifice go unacknowledged. It should have helped. It didn't. Because private support didn't pay rent. Private support didn't put food on the table, or medicine in Maya's inhaler. Marcus drove to the temp agency on 5th Street, the one that placed medical workers in nursing homes and clinics. The woman at the desk, Rhonda, knew him from years ago when he'd first started nursing. "Marcus Williams, been a minute." "Yeah, it has. I need work, Rhonda. Anything you got?" She typed on her computer, her expression shifting from friendly to concerned. "Marcus, honey, you're flagged in the system." "What does that mean?" "Means there's an alert on your license. Says you're under review by the state nursing board for unauthorized practice. Nobody's going to touch you until that's cleared." "How long does that take?" "Could be weeks, could be months, could be never if they decide to pull your license." Marcus felt the floor tilt beneath him. "I have a daughter, Rhonda." "I know you do, sweetheart. I'm sorry. My hands are tied." He walked out into the afternoon sun, the heat pressing down like judgment. His phone rang again. Another reporter. He declined it. Then a text from his landlord. "Marcus, saw the news about County General. Hope everything's okay. Just a reminder, rent is due Monday. Let me know if there's going to be an issue." Let me know if there's going to be an issue. Translation: pay or get out. Marcus drove back toward the apartment, but the news vans were still there. He could see a reporter doing a stand-up in front of his building, probably talking about the rogue nurse who'd violated protocol, the liability nightmare, the controversy. He kept driving, through neighborhoods he'd driven through 1,000 times, past the hospital where he'd worked, where his badge photo still sat on Dr. Hartwell's desk like evidence, past the elementary school where Maya would be getting out in an hour. He found himself at Riverside Park, sitting on a bench overlooking the water. A jogger passed by, a woman with a stroller, an old man feeding ducks. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that someone's entire world was collapsing 50 feet away. Marcus's phone rang again. This time, he answered. "Mr. Williams, this is Captain Jennifer Morrison with the Navy Judge Advocate General's office. I'm calling regarding the incident involving Captain Sarah Chen." Marcus's heart stopped. "Am I being sued?" "No, sir. I'm calling to inform you that Captain Chen is stable and has been transferred to a military medical facility. She's expected to make a full recovery." "That's good. Mr. Williams, what you did last night saved her life. The preliminary medical review confirms she would have died without immediate intervention. You should know that." "Doesn't seem to matter much to anyone else." There was a pause on the line. "I can't speak to civilian hospital politics, sir, but the United States Navy doesn't forget when someone saves one of our own. Captain Chen has already requested to meet you once she's recovered enough." "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because every time someone thanks me for what I did, it just reminds me what it cost." Another pause, longer this time. "I understand you're going through a difficult time, but sir, you gave a mother back to her son, a decorated officer back to her team. That matters. Whether you can see it right now or not, that matters." She hung up. Marcus sat with the phone in his hand, staring at the water, watching the current move downstream, relentless and uncaring. He picked up Maya from school at 3:15. She bounced into the car, full of stories about art class and how she'd painted a rainbow that her teacher said was very creative. "Can we get ice cream, Daddy?" Marcus looked at his daughter in the rearview mirror, still innocent enough to think ice cream solved everything. "Not today, baby. We need to save money for a little while." "Because you don't have a job?" "Yeah." "That's okay. Ice cream isn't that important anyway." But the way she said it, trying so hard to be grown up and understanding, broke something in Marcus that hadn't broken yet. That night, after Maya was asleep, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with a stack of bills and a calculator. No matter how he ran the numbers, they didn't work. He could maybe make it 2 weeks on what was in the account. After that, nothing. He thought about calling his brother in Atlanta, asking for a loan. But Jerome had 3 kids of his own and a mortgage he was already struggling with. He thought about calling Sarah's parents, but they'd never approved of him, had barely spoken to him since the funeral. He was alone, completely, terribly alone. His phone buzzed, another unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Marcus Williams? Yeah? Sir, this is Sergeant Alex Martinez. I was one of the operatives who brought Captain Chen to County General last night. Marcus sat up straighter. I remember. I heard what happened, that they fired you. I wanted you to know that's not right. It's not okay. You saved her life, and they punished you for it. Seems to be the general consensus. Sir, I also wanted you to know that Captain Chen is asking about you. She wants to thank you, personally. She doesn't owe me anything. With respect, sir, she disagrees. We all do. What you did, operating on her without backup, without authorization, knowing it could cost you everything. That's the definition of courage. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Courage doesn't pay the rent, Sergeant. No, sir, it doesn't. But it means something. And sometimes that has to be enough. After he hung up, Marcus sat in the dark apartment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic outside. He thought about Sarah, about the night she'd told him she was pregnant with Maya, the joy and terror mixed together. He thought about the day Maya was born, how he'd held her and promised to always protect her, always provide for her. He'd broken that promise. In trying to do the right thing, he'd destroyed the life he'd built for his daughter. Around midnight, exhausted but unable to sleep, Marcus opened his laptop and started searching for jobs outside healthcare. Warehouse positions, delivery driver, security guard, anything that would pay the bills. Most required background checks. Many asked about previous employment. All of them paid half what he'd made as a nurse. He filled out application after application, each one feeling like a surrender, like an admission that saving Sarah Chen's life had been a mistake. At 2 a.m., Maya appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed elephant. Daddy, why are you still awake? Marcus closed the laptop. Just doing some work, baby. Why aren't you sleeping? I had a bad dream. Come here. She climbed into his lap, still small enough to fit against his chest. He held her, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo, feeling her heartbeat against his. Daddy, are we going to be okay? She asked quietly. Marcus thought about lying, about saying, of course they would. Everything was fine. But Sarah had taught him to be honest with Maya. Age-appropriate, but honest. We're going through a tough time right now, he said. Money's going to be tight for a while. We might have to make some changes. But yes, baby, we're going to be okay. Because we've got each other, and that's what matters most. I don't need new toys or anything, Maya said seriously. We can just stay together, right? Right. Then we'll be fine. She said it with such simple faith that Marcus wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe that love and determination were enough. But bills didn't care about love. Landlords didn't accept determination as payment. Go back to bed, sweetie. You got school tomorrow. Will you tuck me in? Always. He carried her back to her room, tucked the blanket around her, and kissed her forehead. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Maya. More than anything in this world. He stood in her doorway for a long time after she fell back asleep, watching her breathe, watching her dream. She deserved so much better than this. Better than a father who'd thrown away their security on a moment of principle. Better than the struggle that was coming. But as Marcus finally walked back to the couch where he'd sleep another restless night, he couldn't bring himself to regret what he'd done. Sarah Chen was alive. She'd go home to her son. She'd have years she wouldn't have had. That had to mean something. Even if right now, in the crushing weight of consequences, Marcus couldn't quite remember what. The night pressed in, heavy and dark, and somewhere across the city, in a military hospital, a woman breathed steady because Marcus Williams had refused to be the man who did nothing. That truth was all he had left to hold on to. For now, it would have to be enough. 4 days. That's how long it took for Marcus Williams' world to finish crumbling. Monday morning started with an email from his landlord, friendly but firm. "Marcus, didn't see the rent come through. Give me a call today to discuss options." Options meant payment plans Marcus couldn't afford, or a 30-day notice he couldn't survive. He'd called back and left a voicemail asking for an extension, hating how his voice sounded, small and desperate. Tuesday brought a letter from the state nursing board, notice of investigation stamped across the top in red, a hearing scheduled for 6 weeks out, his license suspended pending review. The words swam on the page, but the meaning was clear. Even if he wanted to work as a nurse again, he couldn't. Not legally. Wednesday, Maya came home from school quiet. She sat at the kitchen table, not touching her snack. "Baby, what's wrong?" Marcus asked. "Emma's mom said I can't come over anymore." Marcus's chest tightened. "Did she say why?" Maya shrugged, but her eyes were wet. "Emma said her mom saw you on the news. Said you broke the law or something. Is that true, Daddy? Did you break the law?" Marcus knelt beside her chair. "I broke hospital rules to save someone's life. Some people think that was wrong. But you know what I think?" "What?" "I think some rules are meant to be broken when doing the right thing matters more." "Emma's mom doesn't think so." "No, she doesn't. And that's okay. People are allowed to disagree." But it wasn't okay. It was his 8-year-old daughter being punished for his choices, being isolated because her father had dared to act when no one else would. That night, Marcus applied to 32 jobs. Grocery store stocker, Amazon warehouse, night shift janitor at an office building, Uber driver, though his car barely qualified. Each application felt like swallowing glass. Thursday morning, he woke up on the couch at 5 a.m. to the sound of his phone ringing. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Mr. Williams?" "Yeah?" "This is Detective Sarah Brennan with Houston PD. I need to ask you some questions about the incident at County General Hospital." Marcus sat up, suddenly wide awake. "Am I being charged with something?" "No, sir, but the hospital has filed a formal complaint alleging unauthorized medical practice. I'm required to follow up. Can you come down to the station today?" "I have to take my daughter to school." "How about 10 a.m.? Marcus closed his eyes. "Yeah, I'll be there." The police station smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant. Detective Brennan was younger than Marcus expected, maybe 30, with tired eyes and a wedding ring she kept twisting. "Mr. Williams, I want to be straight with you. I'm not here to jam you up, but I have to ask these questions. You understand?" "Yeah." "Tell me what happened Tuesday night, in your own words." Marcus told her. The woman dying, no surgeon available, the choice he'd made. 43 bullets. A mother who got to live. Brennan took notes, her expression neutral. "You knew you weren't authorized to perform surgery." "I knew." "And you did it anyway." "She would have died. Her son would have lost his mother. What would you have done?" Brennan looked up from her notepad. I'm not here to judge you, Mr. Williams. I'm here to gather facts. The fact is, I saved her life. The fact is, you violated hospital protocol and state medical practice laws. That's what the complaint alleges. So, what happens now? I submit my report. The DA decides if there's enough for charges. Given the circumstances, I doubt they'll prosecute. But the nursing board, that's a different story. Marcus felt the walls pressing in. I have a daughter. I'm all she has. If I lose my license permanently, then you find another way to provide for her. People do it every day. Her voice wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. Look, off the record, what you did took guts. But the system doesn't reward guts. It rewards compliance. You need to understand that. I understand it fine. Doesn't mean I accept it. Brennan closed her notebook. You're free to go. If the DA wants to pursue charges, you'll be notified. But between you and me, I think you're clear on that front. The nursing board, though, that's your real problem. Marcus stood to leave. Detective, do you have kids? She hesitated, then nodded. 2 girls, 6 and 4. If they were dying, and someone could save them, but it meant breaking the rules, what would you want that person to do? Brennan met his eyes. I'd want them to save my girls, but I'd also want them to be prepared for the consequences, because the consequences always come. Marcus drove home through midday traffic, her words echoing. The consequences always come. As if he didn't already know. As if he wasn't living inside those consequences every single day. His phone rang. Jerome, his brother. Man, I saw the news. You all right? Not really. You need money? I don't have much, but I can't take your money, Jay. You got your own family. So do you. Look, I got maybe $500 I can spare. It's yours if you need it. Marcus felt his throat close up. I appreciate it, I really do. But I'm going to figure this out. You sure? Yeah. He wasn't sure. He wasn't sure of anything anymore, except that his pride was all he had left, and he couldn't bring himself to let go of it yet. When he picked up Maya from school, she was quiet again. Mrs. Patterson, her teacher, pulled him aside. Mr. Williams, I just want you to know that Maya's doing fine in class. But some of the other parents, they've been asking questions about what happened at the hospital. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. What kind of questions? Mostly just, is it true? What did you do? That sort of thing. I've been deflecting, but I wanted you to know there's been talk. Mrs. Patterson, I saved a woman's life. That's what I did. If people want to make that into something ugly, that's on them. I understand. And for what it's worth, I think what you did was brave. I just wanted you to be aware. In the car, Maya was unnaturally still. Daddy, why do people keep asking about you? Because sometimes when you do something different, people don't know what to think about it. But you helped someone. I did. Then why are they being mean? Because fear makes people mean sometimes, baby. They're scared of what it means that I broke the rules. They're scared it makes their own rules less important. That's dumb. Marcus couldn't help but smile. Yeah, it kind of is. That evening, Marcus made spaghetti from a box, the cheap kind that cost 99 cents. Maya didn't complain, but he saw her looking at it differently than she used to, like she was starting to understand what tight money meant. After dinner, his phone rang. Unknown number, again. He was getting tired of unknown numbers. Marcus Williams? Who's this? Sir, this is Sergeant Martinez. We spoke a few days ago. Marcus remembered. The operative who'd brought Sarah Chen to the hospital. What do you want? Captain Chen is being released tomorrow. She wanted me to contact you, ask if you'd be willing to meet her. I don't think that's a good idea. Sir, she's very insistent. She says she owes you her life, and she needs to thank you in person. She doesn't owe me anything. With respect, sir, she disagrees. So do we. Look, Sergeant, I appreciate the call, but meeting her isn't going to change anything. I still lost my job. I'm still about to lose my apartment. I'm still explaining to my 8-year-old daughter why her friends can't play with her anymore. So unless Captain Chen can fix any of that, I don't see the point. There was a long pause. Sir, just consider it. Please. She's asking for this meeting specifically. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. I can send you the location. I have to think about it. That's all we're asking. After he hung up, Maya looked up from her homework. Who is that? The people from the woman I helped. They want me to meet her. Are you going to? I don't know. I think you should. Maybe she'll say thank you. You like it when people say thank you. Marcus looked at his daughter, this small person who somehow understood things most adults missed. Maybe I will, baby. Maybe I will. That night, after Maya was asleep, Marcus sat on the small balcony of their apartment, looking out at the parking lot, the distant lights of the city. His phone buzzed. A text from Martinez with an address. A military facility outside the city. He should ignore it. He should focus on job applications, on finding a way to keep the roof over their heads. Meeting Sarah Chen wouldn't pay the rent. It wouldn't get his job back or restore his license. But something pulled at him. The need to see her alive, walking, breathing. To confirm that what he'd sacrificed had been worth it. He texted back. I'll be there. Friday morning, Marcus woke before dawn. He'd barely slept, his mind spinning through scenarios. What would he say to her? What could she possibly say to him that would matter? He dropped Maya at school early, at the before care program he could barely afford. She hugged him tight. Good luck, Daddy. Thanks, baby. Remember, saying thank you is nice. Just let her do it. Marcus smiled despite everything. I'll remember. The drive to the military facility took 40 minutes. Marcus showed his ID at the gate, was waved through after a phone call confirmed his appointment. The grounds were pristine, ordered, everything in its place. The opposite of his life right now. Martinez met him at the entrance to a low building. Mr. Williams, thank you for coming. I'm here. Where is she? Conference room B. Sir, before you go in, I want you to know that what you did, it matters to us. All of us. Captain Chen is one of the best officers I've ever served with. You gave her back to us. Marcus nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Martinez led him down a hallway and opened a door. Inside, sitting at a conference table, was Sarah Chen. She stood when he entered. She was smaller than he remembered, though that might have been because she'd been dying the last time he'd seen her. Her face was pale, but her eyes were clear, focused. Scars ran down her neck, disappearing under her collar. She wore civilian clothes, jeans, and a navy sweatshirt. Mr. Williams, she said, and her voice cracked slightly. Call me Marcus. Marcus. I'm Sarah, though I guess you already knew that. They stood awkwardly for a moment. Then Sarah closed the distance and pulled him into a hug. Marcus stood rigid at first, then slowly returned it. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for my life. When she pulled back, there were tears on her face. I heard what happened, she said. What they did to you. It's not right. It's done. It shouldn't be done. You saved my life, and they punished you for it." Marcus shrugged. "System doesn't reward doing the right thing. It rewards following the rules." "Screw the system." Her voice was fierce. "I'm a mother. I have a son who needs me. You gave him back his mom. Do you understand what that means?" "I understand you're alive. That's enough." "It's not enough. Not when you're suffering because of it." Marcus sat down heavily in one of the chairs. "Captain Chen, Sarah. Sarah, I appreciate you wanting to help. But unless you can get my job back, or my nursing license restored, or convince my landlord not to evict me, there's nothing you can do. I made my choice. I'm living with it." Sarah sat across from him. "What if I told you there's another way?" "What do you mean?" "The Navy doesn't forget its debts, Marcus. What you did, that kind of courage, that kind of skill under pressure, it means something to us. We want to recognize it. Properly. I don't need a medal or a commendation or whatever. I need a job. What if you could have both?" Before Marcus could respond, the door opened. A woman in a Navy dress uniform walked in, stars on her shoulders. An admiral. Marcus started to stand, but she waved him down. "Mr. Williams, I'm Vice Admiral Patricia Reeves. I oversee Special Operations Medical Services. Captain Chen has told me what you did for her. For us." "I was just doing what any nurse would do." "No," the Admiral said firmly. "You did what most nurses wouldn't dare. You operated on a dying woman with no backup, no authorization, knowing it could cost you everything. That's not protocol. That's valor." Marcus shook his head. "Valor doesn't pay my rent, Admiral." "Maybe not. But recognition might help restore your reputation, and that check we're about to give you should help with the rent." Marcus stared at her. "Check?" Admiral Reeves pulled an envelope from her briefcase. "The Navy has a fund for civilians who perform extraordinary service to military personnel. It's not charity. It's acknowledgement of a debt we can't fully repay. Captain Chen is alive because of you. Her son still has his mother. We don't take that lightly." She slid the envelope across the table. Marcus opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a check made out to him. $150,000. The room spun slightly. "This can't be real." "It's very real," Admiral Reeves said. "Consider it a start." "A start to what?" "To making this right. Tomorrow morning, we're holding a ceremony at your home. 10 a.m. We'll be presenting you with the Defense of Freedom Medal, the highest civilian honor the Navy can bestow. The press will be there. Your story will be told properly." Marcus's mind raced. "I don't want to be on the news again." "You're already on the news," Sarah said gently. "But right now, the hospital controls the story. Tomorrow, you control it. People need to know what really happened, what you sacrificed, what you saved." "I have a daughter. I don't want her exposed to all this." "Then we make sure she's protected," Admiral Reeves said. "But Marcus, and I hope you don't mind me using your first name, you deserve recognition. More than that, you deserve vindication. Let us give you that." Marcus looked at the check again. $150,000. It was more money than he'd ever seen at once. It was 2 years of rent, Maya's school expenses, the medical debt paid off. Room to breathe. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why does the Navy care this much?" Sarah leaned forward. "Because I told them to. Because when I woke up in that recovery room and they told me what you'd done, what it cost you, I made a promise. I promised that if I survived, I'd make sure the world knew your name. Not as a cautionary tale, but as a hero." "I'm not a hero." "You are to my son," Sarah said, and her voice broke. "Tommy is 10 years old. His father died in Syria 8 months ago. The night you saved me, I was supposed to FaceTime him before bed. He waited up till midnight, but I never called. You know why? Because I was dead. I was already gone. You brought me back. You gave Tommy back his mother. If that's not heroism, I don't know what is." Marcus felt tears on his face and didn't bother wiping them away. "I just didn't want her to die," he said. "I didn't think about consequences or recognition or any of it. I just saw someone who needed help, and I helped." "That's what makes it heroic," Admiral Reeves said softly. "You didn't calculate the cost. You just acted. The world needs more people like you, Marcus." They talked for another hour. The Admiral explained the ceremony, what it would involve, how they'd handle the press. Sarah shared photos of her son, a gap-toothed kid with his mother's eyes. Martinez came in and out, coordinating details. By the time Marcus left, it was almost noon. He sat in his car in the parking lot, staring at the check, trying to process what had just happened. 24 hours ago, he was applying for warehouse jobs. Now he was holding enough money to survive, to rebuild, to breathe. He called Mrs. Chen to check on Maya. "Oh, Marcus, honey, the child is fine. We're making cookies. You take your time." "Mrs. Chen, I'm going to be able to pay you for all the babysitting. I know I owe you for the last few weeks." "You don't owe me anything. That child is a delight." "Still, I'll pay you, I promise." He hung up and just sat there, letting it sink in. The Navy was coming, tomorrow, to his apartment, with medals and cameras and recognition. His phone rang. Patricia from the hospital. "Marcus, oh my God, is it true? Is the Navy really giving you a medal?" "How did you hear about that?" "It's all over the base social media. There's already news crews calling the hospital asking for comment. Dr. Hartwell is losing her mind." Marcus felt a grim satisfaction at that. Good. Let her sweat. "Marcus, some of us want to be there tomorrow, to support you. Is that okay?" "You sure that's a good idea? For your jobs?" "I don't care anymore. What they did to you was wrong. We should have stood up for you from the start. Let us do it now." "Yeah," Marcus said quietly. "Yeah, I'd like that." The rest of Friday passed in a blur. Marcus picked up Maya, took her for ice cream, actually let himself buy the expensive kind for once. She noticed. "Daddy, did something good happen?" "Yeah, baby, something really good." "What?" "Tomorrow, some people are coming to say thank you. The woman I helped, she wants to meet you." Maya's eyes went wide. "Really? The one you saved?" "Yeah." "Can I wear my princess dress?" Marcus laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. "You can wear whatever you want." That night he called his landlord. "James, it's Marcus Williams. I'll have rent for you tomorrow, plus what I owe for late fees." "Marcus, I heard about the Navy thing. That's incredible, man. And don't worry about the late fees. Just get me current. We're good." One by one, the pieces started falling into place. One by one, the pressure eased. Marcus lay on the couch that night, not sleeping, but not anxious either. Just waiting. Waiting for morning. Waiting to see if this was real, or if he'd wake up and find it was all some desperate dream. But when his alarm went off at 6 a.m. Saturday morning, the check was still in his wallet. The ceremony was still scheduled. The world was still turning, but in a direction that finally felt right. He made Maya breakfast, helped her into her princess dress, combed her hair. She chatted with excitement, asking 100 questions he couldn't answer. At 9:45, neighbors started gathering outside. Someone had seen the news, spread the word. By 9:55, the street was lined with people. Then, at exactly 10 a.m., the sound came. Deep, rhythmic, growing louder. Maya ran to the window. "Daddy, Daddy, what is that?" Marcus stood beside her and looked up at the sky. 3 military helicopters appeared over the buildings, massive and powerful, their rotors beating the air into submission. They descended toward the apartment complex, and the whole world seemed to stop and watch. The wind hit first, a wall of air that bent the trees and sent loose papers flying across the parking lot. Car alarms shrieked. Maya pressed her hands to the window, her princess dress billowing as wind rushed through cracks in the doorframe. "Daddy, they're so big!" Marcus put his hand on her shoulder, steadying himself as much as her. The lead helicopter touched down in the parking lot, its skids settling on asphalt with a precision that spoke of thousands of hours of training. The other 2 hovered overhead, holding position like guardian angels. The side door opened before the rotors stopped spinning. Admiral Reeves emerged first, her uniform crisp despite the wind, medals catching the morning sun. Behind her came Sarah Chen, wearing her dress blues, moving carefully but under her own power. Then Martinez and 3 other service members, each carrying something. Marcus's phone was ringing. He ignored it. The entire neighborhood had spilled out now. Mrs. Chen stood on her balcony with both hands over her mouth. Mr. Rodriguez from downstairs had his phone up, recording. A news van screeched into the parking lot, then another. "We should go outside," Marcus said quietly. Maya grabbed his hand. "I'm scared." "Of what, baby?" "I don't know. It's so big. Everything's so big." Marcus knelt down to her level, the same way he'd done 1,000 times before, when the world got too overwhelming for an 8-year-old to process. "You know what all of this is?" She shook her head. "It's people saying thank you. That's all. Just thank you, but really, really loud. Can you handle that?" Maya took a breath, then nodded. "Okay, I can handle it." They walked outside together. The rotor wash was dying down, but the crowd was growing. People Marcus had lived next to for 3 years, had nodded to in the laundry room, had never really known. They were all watching now. Admiral Reeves walked toward Marcus's building with Sarah beside her. Martinez carried a wooden case. Another sailor had a flag, folded to perfect triangles. The news cameras were rolling, reporters shouting questions that got lost in the residual noise. Marcus met them at the bottom of the stairs. For a moment, nobody spoke. The Admiral's eyes went to Maya, taking in the princess dress, the way she clutched her father's hand. "You must be Maya," Admiral Reeves said, and her voice was softer than it had been in the conference room. "Yes, ma'am." "Your daddy is a very brave man. Do you know that?" "Yes, ma'am. He saves people." "He saved me," Sarah said, stepping forward. She knelt down, bringing herself to Maya's height. "My name is Sarah. Your daddy pulled 43 bullets out of me and gave me back my life. He gave me back to my son. Do you understand how special that is?" Maya looked up at Marcus, then back to Sarah. "He says it was just his job." Sarah smiled, tears already forming. "It was more than a job, sweetheart. It was a miracle." She stood, facing Marcus directly now. The cameras pressed closer. Reporters had their microphones extended. The crowd had gone silent. "Marcus Williams," Admiral Reeves said, her voice carrying with parade ground authority. "On behalf of the United States Navy, and by order of the Secretary of Defense, it is my honor to present you with the Defense of Freedom Medal for extraordinary civilian valor in the face of life-threatening circumstances." Martinez opened the wooden case. Inside, on blue velvet, lay a medal. Silver and gold, suspended from a ribbon of navy blue and white. It caught the light like a promise. Admiral Reeves lifted it carefully and stepped toward Marcus. You acted without authorization, without backup, and without regard for personal consequence to save the life of a decorated naval officer. You performed emergency field surgery under conditions that would challenge even our most experienced combat medics. You extracted 43 bullets over a period of 3 hours, working alone to stabilize a patient who would have died without your intervention. She placed the medal around his neck. The weight of it settled against his chest, heavier than he'd expected. The United States Navy does not forget those who stand in the breach. We do not forget those who choose courage over comfort, action over hesitation. You, sir, are a hero, and it's time the world knew it. She stepped back and saluted, sharp, crisp, perfect. Behind her, every service member present did the same. Sarah, Martinez, the pilots still visible in the helicopter cockpits. All saluting a single father in jeans and a button-down shirt, who'd lost everything for doing what was right. The crowd erupted. Applause started somewhere and spread like wildfire. People cheered. Someone whistled. Mrs. Chen was openly crying on her balcony. Marcus stood frozen, Maya still holding his hand, tears streaming down his face without permission. "I don't know what to say," he managed. "Say whatever's in your heart," Admiral Reeves replied. Marcus looked at the crowd, at the cameras, at Sarah Chen standing there alive and whole. He thought about the last week, the shame and fear and crushing weight of consequences. He thought about Maya's question, "Did you break the law, Daddy?" He thought about Sarah's words in the hospital. "He dies, or you answer to Washington and her 10-year-old son." "I didn't do this for recognition," he said, his voice rough but carrying. "I did it because a mother was dying and her son needed her. I did it because I took an oath to protect life, and that oath doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't say, protect life unless it's inconvenient, or unless someone might sue you, or unless you might lose your job. It just says, protect life. So that's what I did." He wiped his eyes with his free hand. "The hospital fired me for it. They said I was reckless, that I put them at risk. And maybe I did. But Captain Chen is alive. She's standing right here. She gets to go home to her son. That's what I was willing to lose everything for. And I'd do it again. Every single time." The applause grew louder. Sarah stepped forward and pulled him into a tight embrace. "Thank you," she whispered in his ear. "Thank you for my life." When she pulled back, she turned to Maya. "I have something for you," Sarah said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small photograph. "This is my son, Tommy. He's 10. He wanted me to give this to you because your daddy gave me back to him." Maya took the photo carefully. It showed a boy with a gap-toothed grin, holding a baseball bat. "He looks nice," Maya said. "He is. And he knows what your daddy did. We both do. We'll never forget it." Martinez stepped forward with another envelope. "Sir, the Secretary of the Navy wanted you to have this personally." He handed it to Marcus. "It's a letter of commendation and a check for $150,000 from the Defense of Freedom Fund. You saved one of our best. This is us saying thank you, the only way we know how." Someone in the crowd gasped. The reporters went crazy, shouting questions. Marcus just stared at the envelope. "I already got this yesterday." "That was Captain Chen's personal contribution," Martinez said. "This is from the Navy." Marcus looked at Admiral Reeves. $300,000? "You gave Captain Chen back to her son," the Admiral said. "You gave the Navy back one of our finest officers. You think we weren't going to respond?" Sir, with all due respect, you clearly don't understand how seriously we take our debts. A reporter pushed through the crowd, microphone extended. Mr. Williams, Channel 7 News. How do you respond to County General's statement that you violated protocol and endangered patient safety? Marcus turned to face the camera directly. I respond by pointing at Captain Chen. She's alive. Her vital signs were failing. The on-call surgeon was over an hour away. Every other doctor was occupied. I had the training and the skill from 12 years as a combat medic, so I made a choice. I chose life over protocol. And if County General wants to say that was wrong, they can explain it to Captain Chen's 10-year-old son. Another reporter jumped in. Do you have any message for the hospital administration? Marcus paused, thinking. Sarah touched his arm lightly. Tell them the truth, she said quietly. My message is this, Marcus said, looking directly into the camera. I understand liability. I understand rules exist for reasons. But I also understand that rules without compassion aren't worth following. A mother was dying in front of me, and I had the power to save her. If following protocol meant watching her die, then protocol needed to break. I'm not sorry for what I did. I'm only sorry that doing the right thing is considered controversial. What about your nursing license? The state board has suspended you pending investigation. Then I guess they'll have to decide if saving lives disqualifies someone from being a nurse. Seems like a strange position to take, but it's their call. The reporters were shouting more questions, but Admiral Reeves raised her hand. That's enough. Mr. Williams has said what he needed to say. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a ceremony to complete. She turned to the assembled service members. Honor Guard, present arms. The sailors lined up, standing at attention. The flag was unfurled, the one that had been folded. They raised it slowly, while Martinez played taps on a trumpet that seemed to come from nowhere. The sound echoed across the parking lot, mournful and beautiful, and somehow exactly right. When it finished, Admiral Reeves handed the flag to Marcus. This flag flew over the USS Nimitz the day Captain Chen was wounded. It flew for her survival, and it flew for you. It's yours now, a symbol of what you represent. Courage under fire, compassion under pressure, and the absolute refusal to let the darkness win. Marcus took the flag, the fabric heavy in his hands. Maya touched it gently, running her fingers over the stars. An older black man pushed through the crowd. He wore a Vietnam veteran's cap and walked with a cane. Son, he called out. Son, hold on! He approached slowly, and Marcus recognized him. Mr. Thompson from Building C, the man who sat on his porch every afternoon and never spoke to anyone. Sir, Marcus said, I served in Nam. Got a Purple Heart and a piece of shrapnel still in my leg. Been watching what happened to you this week. Been watching people treat you like you did something wrong. He paused, his voice thick. But you did what we all did. You saw someone who needed saving, and you saved them. Consequences be damned. That's the real oath, the one that matters. He extended his hand. Marcus shook it, feeling the strength in the old man's grip. You make us proud, son. You make all of us proud. Other voices called out from the crowd. We're with you, Marcus. They were wrong to fire you. You're a hero. Patricia pushed through, still in her nurse's scrubs from the night shift. Behind her came Amy, Tony the security guard, and a dozen other county general's staff. Marcus, Patricia said, breathless, we had to come. We had to show you that not everyone at that hospital agrees with what they did. You could lose your jobs. Then we lose them, Amy said fiercely. What you did was nursing at its finest. If they fire us for supporting that, then they can go to hell. A news helicopter circled overhead now, adding to the surreal circus of it all. Marcus saw his landlord, James, standing near his building entrance, just watching. Their eyes met. James nodded once, respect in the gesture. Sarah stepped forward again, this time addressing the cameras directly. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen, United States Navy. 6 days ago, I was ambushed during a classified operation. I took 43 gunshot wounds. When I arrived at County General Hospital, I was dying. I had minutes, maybe less. The on-call surgeon was unavailable. Every other physician was occupied. Marcus Williams, an emergency room nurse with combat medic experience, made the decision to operate. He spent 3 hours extracting bullets from my body, stabilizing my vitals, and bringing me back from the edge of death." Her voice grew stronger, more forceful. "I am alive because of him. I'm standing here because he refused to let protocol kill me. I have a 10-year-old son who lost his father 8 months ago. That boy still has his mother, because Marcus Williams chose courage over compliance. And for that, County General Hospital fired him. They destroyed his career for saving my life. That's not justice. That's cowardice." She turned to Marcus. "I want the world to know what you sacrificed. I want everyone watching to understand that you lost your job, your income, your reputation, all for doing what was right. And I want them to know that the United States Navy sees you for what you truly are. A hero." The crowd's applause was deafening now. Maya tugged on Marcus's hand. "Daddy, everyone's clapping for you." "I know, baby. Are you still sad?" Marcus looked down at his daughter, at her princess dress and her gap-toothed smile, and her absolute faith that her daddy was good and right and worthy. "No, baby. I'm not sad anymore." Admiral Reeves stepped forward one final time. "Mr. Williams, the Navy would like to extend an offer. We need experienced medical personnel, especially those with combat training and emergency response skills. We'd like you to consider a position as Civilian Director of Emergency Services at the Naval Medical Center in San Diego. It's a leadership role, working with our medical teams to develop trauma response protocols. The salary is $180,000 a year, with full benefits, housing allowance, and relocation assistance." Marcus's head spun. "San Diego?" "It's a fresh start," the Admiral said gently. "Away from the politics, the judgment, the people who can't see past their own fear. A place where your skills would be valued, where what you did would be celebrated, not punished." "I have a daughter, her school, her friends." "The base has excellent schools, support systems for military families. You'd be welcomed, both of you. But the choice is yours. Take time to think about it." Marcus looked at Maya. "What do you think, baby? Want to move to California?" Maya's eyes went wide. "Is there a beach?" "Lots of beaches." "Then yes!" The crowd laughed. Sarah smiled. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "San Diego's where I'm stationed, where Tommy lives. If you came there, we'd love to have you close, to thank you properly, to be the friends you deserve." A black woman pushed forward, professional in a blazer and slacks. "Mr. Williams, I'm Denise Walker, attorney. I'd like to represent you pro bono in any action against County General for wrongful termination. What they did was illegal and immoral. You have grounds for a substantial lawsuit." Another man called out, "Marcus, I'm David Chen, no relation." He smiled at Sarah. "I run a healthcare advocacy nonprofit. We'd love to have you speak at our events. Tell your story. Help us change these kinds of policies nationwide." The offers kept coming. Speaking engagements, interview requests, job opportunities from hospitals across the country who'd seen the news and wanted to make a point about valuing nurses who act with courage. Marcus stood in the center of it all, Maya's hand in his, the medal around his neck, and felt the weight of the last week finally lifting. Not gone, not erased, but balanced somehow by this moment, by these people who saw what he'd done and called it by its right name. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Dr. Vivian Hartwell. We need to talk." Marcus showed it to Admiral Reeves. She read it and smiled grimly. "I imagine she's feeling some pressure right now. Channel 7 just reported that County General's Board of Directors called an emergency meeting. Social media is destroying them. Their reputation is taking a beating." "Good," Marcus said, and meant it. Another text came through, this time from Jerome. "Brother, you're all over the news. I'm so damn proud of you. Call me when you can." Then Mrs. Patterson, Maya's teacher. "Mr. Williams, I just saw what happened. I want you to know that every staff member at the school supports you. Maya will always be welcome here, for however long you stay." The helicopters began powering up again, rotors starting their slow rotation. Admiral Reeves saluted one final time. "Think about San Diego. You have our number. Whatever you decide, know that the Navy stands with you." "Thank you, Admiral, for all of this." "Thank you, Mr. Williams, for reminding us what real courage looks like." Sarah hugged him again, then knelt to Maya. "I'll see you again soon, okay? Maybe you can meet Tommy." "I'd like that," Maya said. The service members loaded back into the helicopters. The engines roared. The crowd stepped back as the aircraft lifted, slowly at first, then rising with practiced grace. They hovered for a moment, a final salute, then banked away toward the horizon. The silence they left behind was different from the silence of the past week. That had been the silence of isolation, of shame. This was the silence of awe, of witnessing something that mattered. Patricia approached, tears streaming. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I should have stood with you from the beginning." "You stood with me in that trauma bay. You helped me save her. That's what matters." "What are you going to do? About the hospital?" Marcus thought about it. The lawsuit Denise Walker had offered. The interviews David Chen wanted to arrange. The platform he suddenly had to speak truth to power. "I'm going to let them sweat for a while," he said. "Let them wonder if I'm coming for them legally. Let them feel what it's like to be judged by the whole world. And then, maybe, I'll decide if they're worth my time." "And the nursing board?" "If they want to take my license for saving a life, they can try. But something tells me they're going to have a hard time making that case now." The crowd began dispersing slowly, people coming up to shake his hand, to say congratulations, to tell him they'd believed in him all along, even though most of them hadn't known his name a week ago. Marcus accepted it all with grace, with Maya beside him, his anchor to what really mattered. Mr. Thompson approached one final time. "Son, one more thing. Us veterans, we take care of our own. You need anything, anything at all, you come find me. Understand?" "Yes, sir. Thank you." "No, thank you, for showing these young folks what it means to stand for something." By noon, the parking lot was empty again, except for the news vans packing up their equipment. Marcus and Maya went back inside. The apartment looked different somehow, like the light came through the windows at a new angle. Marcus's phone wouldn't stop ringing. News requests, interview offers, but also friends. People he hadn't heard from in years, reaching out to say they'd seen the ceremony. They were proud. They'd always known he was special. Maya changed out of her princess dress and into her regular clothes. "Daddy, are we really moving to California?" "Maybe. Would you miss it here?" She thought about it seriously. "I'd miss Mrs. Chen and my school. But if we're going somewhere where people think you're a hero, I want to go there." "People here think I'm a hero too, now." "Yeah, But they didn't before. They were mean to you. I don't want to stay where people were mean to you." Marcus pulled her into a hug. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from you, Daddy." That evening, Marcus finally called Dr. Hartwell back. She answered on the first ring. "Mr. Williams, thank you for returning my call." "What do you want?" "I want to discuss your return to County General. The board has voted to reinstate you immediately, with back pay and a promotion to senior emergency nurse. We'd also like to issue a public apology for the hasty nature of your termination." Marcus laughed, sharp and bitter. "Hasty nature? You called me reckless. You said I endangered the hospital. You had security walk me out like a criminal." "We made a mistake. We acted out of fear rather than principle. We'd like the opportunity to make it right." "You had the opportunity to make it right a week ago. You chose liability over life, just like I said." "Mr. Williams, please. The board is prepared to offer substantial compensation for the distress we caused. We value you as a member of our team. You valued me so much you destroyed my reputation and told every hospital in the city I was a liability. You valued me so much you left me unemployed with a daughter to feed. Don't talk to me about value, Dr. Hartwell." There was a long pause. "What would it take for you to come back?" Marcus thought about it. The job offer from San Diego. The platform he now had. The chance to start over somewhere that wanted him, not somewhere that had to be shamed into taking him back. "Nothing. There's nothing you could offer that would make me work for people who punish courage and reward compliance. I'm done with County General. Find someone else to sacrifice when your protocols matter more than your patients." He hung up before she could respond. It felt good. It felt right. Maya looked up from her homework. "Was that the bad lady?" "Yeah." "What did she want?" "She wanted me to come back to work there." "Are you going to?" "No, baby. We're going to California. We're going to start over somewhere better." Maya smiled. "Good. I want to see the beach." Marcus smiled back, feeling lighter than he had in years. The medal sat on the kitchen table, catching the evening light. The flag was draped carefully over the back of the couch. The checks, both of them, were in his wallet. $300,000. Enough to breathe. Enough to dream. His phone buzzed one more time. A text from Sarah. "Tommy wants to meet you when you get to San Diego. He keeps asking about the man who saved his mom. I told him you're a superhero. Was I wrong?" Marcus typed back. "I'm just a dad trying to do right by his kid. But I'd love to meet Tommy. See you in California." He set the phone down and looked around the small apartment. The place where he'd grieved Sarah, raised Maya, learned to be both mother and father. It had been home. But home wasn't a place. It was wherever he and Maya were together. And their next home was waiting for them in California, where the Navy valued courage, and a 10-year-old boy wanted to meet the man who gave him back his mother. Marcus Williams had lost everything for doing the right thing. And then, in the space of a single morning, he'd gained something better. Not just money or medals or recognition, though those helped. He'd gained the certainty that sacrifice wasn't meaningless, that courage wasn't foolish, that standing in the breach mattered even when it cost everything. The world had tried to break him for being brave. Instead, it had shown him just how strong he really was. The moving truck pulled away from the apartment complex on a Thursday morning in late October, 3 weeks after the helicopters came. Marcus stood in the empty parking lot, Maya's hand in his, watching Houston disappear in the rearview mirror of his packed Honda Civic. Mrs. Chen had cried when they said goodbye, pressing a tin of homemade cookies into Maya's hands and making Marcus promise to call every week. Mr. Thompson had shaken his hand with that firm veteran's grip and said only, "Make us proud, son." Patricia and the other nurses from County General had thrown him a going-away party at a diner off the interstate, toasting him with coffee and pie and promises to visit California. "You ready for this, baby?" Marcus asked as they buckled in. Maya clutched her stuffed elephant, looking back at the only home she'd really known. "I'm ready if you are, Daddy." "Then let's go see the ocean." The drive took 3 days. They stopped at roadside motels, with pools Maya splashed in until her fingers pruned. They ate at diners where waitresses called them honey and sugar and asked where they were headed. When Marcus said, "San Diego, Navy job, fresh start," they'd nod like they understood, like they'd seen plenty of people running towards something better. In Arizona, Maya fell asleep against the window, and Marcus drove through desert darkness, thinking about Sarah's words. "You gave me back to my son." He thought about Tommy, 10 years old, waiting to meet the man who'd saved his mother. He thought about the life he was driving toward, the one the Navy had offered, the one he'd earned through 43 bullets and 3 hours of refusing to let death win. His phone rang. Jerome. "Where you at, brother?" "Just crossed into California." "How you feeling?" "Like I'm driving off a cliff and hoping there's something to catch me." Jerome laughed. "That's called faith, Marcus. You're doing the right thing." "I hope so." "I know so. That hospital didn't deserve you. San Diego's lucky to have you." They pulled into their new apartment complex in San Diego just after sunset on Sunday. The Navy had arranged temporary housing in base family quarters, a 2-bedroom unit that overlooked a courtyard with a playground. Maya was asleep when they arrived, so Marcus carried her inside, her head heavy on his shoulder, the way it used to be when she was smaller. He laid her in the bed the Navy had provided, tucked the blanket around her, and stood in the doorway, watching her breathe. 3 weeks ago, he thought they might lose this apartment, might end up couch surfing or worse. Now they were here, in California, with an ocean 10 miles away and a future that felt possible again. Monday morning, Marcus reported to the Naval Medical Center, San Diego. The building was massive, modern, nothing like County General's aging infrastructure. He wore slacks and a button-down, the Defense of Freedom medal on a chain under his shirt, close to his heart. The receptionist smiled when she saw him. "Mr. Williams, they're expecting you. 4th floor, director's office." Captain James Richardson met him at the elevator, a Navy physician in his 50s, with kind eyes and a handshake that felt genuine. "Marcus, good to finally meet you in person. Admiral Reeves has told me a lot about you." "All good, I hope." "All true," which amounts to the same thing. Richardson led him down a hallway, lined with photos of Navy medical personnel in action. Field hospitals, ship operations, humanitarian missions. "You're going to be working with our emergency response teams, developing protocols for mass casualty situations, training our corpsmen in advanced trauma care. Your combat medic background, combined with your civilian nursing experience, makes you uniquely qualified." They entered a conference room where a dozen people waited, a mix of military and civilian medical staff. Richardson made introductions. Dr. Lisa Park, Emergency Medicine. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos, Head of Nursing. Chief Petty Officer Jackson, Senior Corpsman Instructor. Marcus Williams saved Captain Sarah Chen's life under conditions most of us wouldn't attempt, Richardson told the room. He operated alone, without authorization, knowing it could cost him everything. That's the kind of decision-making under pressure we need to study, to understand, to replicate when lives are on the line. A young corpsman raised his hand. "Sir, question. You operated without a physician present. How did you know you wouldn't make things worse?" Marcus thought about the question, about how to explain instinct and training, and the terrible clarity that comes when someone's dying in front of you. "I didn't know," he said honestly. "But I knew what would happen if I did nothing. She'd die. So the choice was between certain death and possible survival. When you frame it that way, the decision gets easier. But the liability matters when you're protecting an institution. It doesn't matter when you're protecting a life. I'm not saying ignore protocols. I'm saying understand when protocols serve patients and when they serve paperwork. You'll know the difference when you're standing there with seconds to decide. The meeting lasted 2 hours. They discussed trauma algorithms, triage procedures, decision-making frameworks. Marcus found himself enjoying it, the intellectual challenge of breaking down what he'd done instinctively into teachable components. Afterward, Dr. Park approached him. That was impressive. Most nurses defer to physicians in these discussions. You held your own. I've been doing this a long time, and I learned a while ago that expertise matters more than titles. Well, we're glad to have you. And Marcus? She paused. What happened in Houston? The way that hospital treated you? It was wrong. But it brought you here. Sometimes the universe works in weird ways. That evening, Marcus picked up Maya from the base school where she'd started that morning. She ran to the car, backpack bouncing. Daddy, I made 3 friends, and my teacher is really nice, and there's a girl named Sophie who has an elephant stuffed animal just like mine. That's great, baby.
Can Sophie come over sometime? Yeah, we'll set that up.
Driving home, Maya chattered about her day, the cafeteria food, the playground, how different everything was from Houston. She didn't mention the friends who'd stopped talking to her, the mothers who'd whispered, the isolation she'd felt those last weeks. She was already moving forward, resilient in the way kids are when they trust the adults in their lives. Marcus's phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Sarah. Tomorrow, 2 p.m.? Tommy's been asking every day. The address is attached. Just casual, backyard barbecue. No pressure. Marcus typed back with one hand. We'll be there. The next afternoon, Marcus and Maya drove to Sarah's house in a quiet neighborhood 15 minutes from base. It was a modest, single story, with a basketball hoop in the driveway and a garden that needed weeding. Before Marcus could knock, the door flew open. Tommy Chen stood there, gap-toothed and grinning, exactly like his photo. Behind him, Sarah appeared, wearing jeans and a navy sweatshirt, her scars visible on her neck, but her smile bright. You came, she said. We said we would. Come in, come in. Tommy's been watching the window for 20 minutes. Inside, the house smelled like grilling burgers. Martinez was in the backyard, flipping patties, along with a few other service members Marcus recognized from the ceremony. It felt less like a formal thank you and more like family. Tommy approached Marcus shyly. You're the one who saved my mom? I am. She said you pulled 43 bullets out of her. Is that true? It is. That's so cool. Then, remembering his manners, I'm really glad you did. Thank you. Marcus knelt down to the boy's level. Your mom told me about you, about your dad. I'm sorry you lost him. Tommy's smile faded a bit. Yeah, me too. But at least I still have Mom, because of you. You want to know a secret? What? Saving your mom saved me too. I was in a dark place, and doing what was right reminded me who I wanted to be. So really, we saved each other. Tommy thought about that, then nodded seriously. Cool. You want to see my room? I have a model aircraft carrier. I'd love to. Maya and Tommy disappeared upstairs, and Marcus could hear them talking, Maya's voice animated, Tommy's enthusiastic. Sarah handed Marcus a beer. Thank you for coming. I know this is a lot. It's nice. Normal. I haven't had normal in a while. How's the job? Good. Really good. It feels right, you know? Like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You are. And Marcus, I meant what I said at the ceremony. We're friends now. You need anything, anything at all, you call me. Same goes for you. They sat in the backyard while Martinez grilled, talking about everything and nothing. The other service members shared deployment stories, asked Marcus about his Army days, treated him like one of them. For the first time since Houston, Marcus felt like he belonged somewhere. As the sun set, Tommy and Maya came running outside. "Mom, can Maya come to my soccer game on Saturday? Please?" Sarah looked at Marcus, who nodded. "Sure, we'll be there." Driving home that night, Maya was quiet until they were almost back to the apartment. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby?" "I like it here." "Me too." "Tommy's nice. He said I could meet his friends. And Sarah said I could call her Aunt Sarah if I wanted to." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "You want to call her that?" "I think so. Is that okay? I know she's not really my aunt." Family isn't always blood, baby. Sometimes it's the people who show up when you need them. If Sarah feels like family to you, then that's what she is. The weeks rolled into months. Marcus fell into the rhythm of his new job, teaching corpsmen, developing protocols, consulting on difficult cases. The staff respected him, sought his opinion, valued his experience. No one questioned his authority or treated him like he'd overstepped. Here, what he'd done in Houston was proof of expertise, not evidence of recklessness. Maya thrived. She joined Tommy's soccer team, made friends at school, stopped having the nightmares she'd had those last weeks in Houston. She laughed more, worried less, stopped asking if they had enough money for things. One Saturday in January, 4 months after they'd arrived, Marcus was at the Naval Medical Center doing weekend training when a young corpsman approached him during a break. "Sir, can I ask you something?" "Of course, and it's Marcus, not sir." "Marcus, I've been following your story since Houston. What happened there? It's actually why I joined the Navy medical program. I wanted to work somewhere that valued doing the right thing over protecting institutions." "That's a good reason." "But I'm scared, you know? Scared that when the moment comes, I'll freeze. I'll think about consequences instead of patience. How do you get past that?" Marcus thought about the question, about that night in the trauma bay, about the moment he decided to operate, knowing it could destroy him. "You don't get past the fear," he said. "You use it. Fear means you understand the stakes. It means you're taking the situation seriously. But you can't let it paralyze you. When someone's dying and you have the skills to help, everything else is noise. The paperwork, the liability, the what-ifs, all of it is just noise compared to a human life slipping away. What if I'm wrong? What if I make it worse? Then you make it worse trying to save them instead of making it worse by doing nothing. At least you tried. At least you stood in the breach. That has to be worth something." The corpsman nodded slowly. "Thank you. That helps." "What's your name?" "Rodriguez. Julio Rodriguez." "Well, Julio, you're going to be fine." "You know how I know?" "How?" "Because you're asking the right questions. The people who scare me are the ones who never question themselves, who think the rules always have the answers. You're not one of those people. Trust your training, trust your instincts, and remember why you're here." That night, Marcus got a call from Patricia in Houston. "Marcus, you sitting down?" "Should I be?" County General just settled 3 lawsuits from families alleging delayed treatment due to protocol enforcement. The board fired Dr. Hartwell. They're completely restructuring their emergency response policies. And guess whose case they're using as the example of how things should be done? No. Yes, they're calling it the Williams Protocol. Emergency authorization for qualified medical personnel to act in life-threatening situations when physicians aren't immediately available. It's going to be implemented across their whole hospital system. Marcus sat down heavily.
They fired me for doing exactly that.
I know, and now they're making it official policy. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a scalpel. Did they ever apologize? Officially? They put out a statement saying they'd made an error in judgment and were committed to supporting medical professionals who act with courage and compassion. Your name was mentioned 6 times. Too little, too late. Agreed, but Marcus, it means something. It means you change things. Other nurses won't get fired for doing what you did. That's your legacy. After they hung up, Marcus walked out onto a small balcony. The California night was cool, stars visible despite the city lights. Somewhere out there, nurses were working night shifts, facing impossible decisions, choosing between rules and lives. And now, at least in one hospital system, they had backup. They had a protocol that said saving lives mattered more than protecting institutions. It didn't fix what had happened to him.
It didn't give him back the weeks of unemployment and fear and shame.
But it meant those weeks hadn't been meaningless. Suffering that leads to change isn't wasted. It's redemption. In March, Marcus was invited to speak at a national nursing conference in Chicago. He almost declined, but Sarah convinced him to go. Your story matters. Other people need to hear it. So he flew to Chicago and stood on a stage in front of 800 nurses and told them about that Tuesday night, about Sarah Chen dying, about choosing to act, about losing everything and finding something better. I'm not special, he told them. I just refused to be the person who did nothing. And yes, it cost me. It cost me my job, my reputation, my sense of security. But it gave me something too. It gave me certainty. Certainty that I'd acted from my values, that I'd been the nurse I swore to be when I took the oath. Nobody can take that from me. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes.
Afterward, dozens of nurses lined up to talk to him, to share their own stories of choosing patients over protocols, of facing consequences for doing what was right. A young black woman, maybe 25, waited until the end.
Mr. Williams, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm a new grad, and I've been scared. Scared of making mistakes, scared of getting fired, scared of everything. But hearing your story, it reminded me why I became a nurse. Not to follow rules, to save lives.
What's your name?
Keisha Thompson.
Well, Keisha, you're going to be a great nurse. You know why?
Why?
Because you're scared. Fear means you care. Just don't let it stop you from acting when it matters. Flying back to San Diego, Marcus thought about all the Keishas out there, all the young nurses trying to find their way in a system that too often valued compliance over compassion. If his story helped even one of them choose courage, then Houston had been worth it.
Maya was waiting at the airport with Sarah and Tommy, holding a sign that said, "Welcome home, Daddy," in crooked letters decorated with hearts.
"How was Chicago?" Sarah asked as they walked to the car. "Good. Really good. I think I'm finally understanding what all this was for." "What was it for?" "To show people that doing the right thing matters, even when it costs everything. Especially when it costs everything." That night, after Maya was asleep, Marcus sat on the couch looking at the Defense of Freedom Medal, now framed and hanging on the wall. Beside it was a photo from Tommy's soccer game. Maya and Tommy with their arms around each other, both grinning. Next to that, a picture of him and Sarah at the Navy birthday ball, dressed up and looking happy. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Williams, my name is James Chen. I'm a pre-med student at UC San Diego. I read about what you did in Houston. I'm writing my application essay about moral courage in medicine, and I'd love to interview you if you have time. Marcus smiled and typed back, "Sure, let's set something up." The interviews kept coming. Medical students, journalists, nursing programs. His story had taken on a life of its own, become something bigger than just one nurse and one patient. It had become a symbol of what healthcare could be when people valued lives over liability. On a Sunday morning in May, almost 8 months after the helicopters came, Marcus and Maya drove to the beach. They found a quiet spot away from the crowds, spread out a blanket, and watched the waves roll in.
Daddy, are you happy?
Maya asked, building a sandcastle. Yeah, baby, I really am.
Happier than Houston?
Marcus thought about it. Houston had been home, but Houston had also been the place where they'd tried to destroy him for being brave. Here, in San Diego, he was valued, respected, surrounded by people who understood that sometimes rules needed to break for the right reasons. Different than Houston, he said. Not better or worse, just different. This is where we're supposed to be right now. Because of the lady you saved? Because I saved her, and it changed everything. Sometimes doing the right thing tears your life apart. But if you hold on long enough, it builds you something better. Maya nodded, wise beyond her 8 years. I'm glad you saved her, Daddy, even though it was hard. Me too, baby. Me too. They stayed at the beach until sunset, building castles and chasing waves, and being a father and daughter who'd survived the storm and found solid ground on the other side. As they packed up to leave, Marcus's phone rang one more time. Admiral Reeves. Marcus, hope I'm not interrupting your Sunday. No, ma'am, just at the beach with my daughter. Good, I won't keep you. I just wanted to let you know that the Navy is creating a new training program for combat medics and corpsmen. Advanced trauma response under extreme conditions. We'd like you to head it up. It would be a significant promotion, full leadership position, and honestly, I can't think of anyone better qualified. Marcus looked at Maya collecting shells, at the ocean stretching to the horizon, at the life they'd built from the ashes of everything they'd lost. I'd be honored, Admiral. Excellent. We'll discuss details tomorrow. Enjoy your evening. Marcus hung up, and Maya ran over, hands full of shells. Who was that? Work. They want me to run a new program. Is that good? Yeah, baby. It's really good. They drove home as the sun painted the sky orange and purple. Maya chattering about the shells she'd found, about Tommy's birthday party next week, about the sleepover Sophie had invited her to. Normal kid things. Safe kid things. The kind of things she deserved. That night, after putting Maya to bed, Marcus stood in the doorway of her room one more time, watching her sleep. He thought about Sarah in the emergency bay 2 years ago, about how she would have died if he'd followed protocol, if he'd waited for permission, if he'd valued his job over her life. He thought about Tommy, who still had his mother because Marcus Williams had refused to be the man who did nothing. The cost had been steep. His job, his reputation, weeks of fear and shame and uncertainty. But the gain had been steeper. A life saved. A family reunited. A new career built on the foundation of courage. A story that inspired others to choose compassion over compliance. Marcus had lost everything for doing the right thing. And in losing everything, he'd found what truly mattered. Not security or safety or the approval of institutions, but the bone-deep certainty that when the moment came, when someone needed him, he'd answered the call. That was worth more than any job, any paycheck, any amount of comfort. That was the legacy he'd leave Maya. Not wealth or status, but the example of a man who stood in the breach when no one else would, who chose life over liability, who proved that sometimes the system is wrong and courage is the only right answer.
The helicopters had come. The medal had been awarded. The recognition had arrived. But none of that defined him. What defined Marcus Williams was simpler, truer, and more powerful than any ceremony or commendation. He was the man who saved Sarah Chen. He was the father who taught his daughter that doing right matters more than doing easy. He was the nurse who proved that compassion without courage is just sentiment. But courage with compassion can change the world. And on a quiet Sunday night in San Diego, with his daughter sleeping peacefully and his future stretching bright before him, Marcus Williams understood with absolute clarity that he'd made the right choice. Every sacrifice, every consequence, every moment of pain had led him exactly where he needed to be. Not despite what he'd done, because of it.